Assalamu alaikum. A very warm welcome to all of you. Welcome to the 43rd Lahore Ophthalmo. My name is Mohammad Anwar Awan and I'm working as optometrist in College of Ophthalmology and Allied Vision Sciences. I will be the moderator of this session. The chairman for this session is Dr. Iqbal Javed, a renowned ophthalmologist and working as program coordinator, College of Ophthalmology and Allied Vision Sciences, Fred Hollows Foundation. We will now begin the session. Each presenter will have 5 minutes to complete their presentation. Our first presenter is Mumtaz Habib, effect of anisometropia on binocularity.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. I'm Mumtaz Habib, a scholar of optometrist at King Edward Medical University. And today my topic is effect of anisometropia on binocularity. These are the contents. Introduction. What is anisometropia? Anisometropia is basically an refractive asymmetry between the two eyes. Prevalence is it is an Indian study in which prevalence of anisometropia was found to be 16.5% in overall population with refractive errors, from which 57.5% are females and 42% are males. These are the types of anisometropia: simple, compound, and antimetropia. In simple anisometropia, one eye is emetropic and other may be myopic, hyperopic, and in compound, both eyes have refractive error of same nature, myopia or hypermetropia, but of different degrees. And in antimetropia, one eye is myopic and other is hyperopic. Similarly, in stigmatic anisometropia, there are three types: simple, compound, and mixed. In simple stigmatic anisometropia, one eye is myopic and other has emetropia. The other in hyperopic anisometropia, one eye is emetropic and other have cylindrical correction of hyperopic. And in mixed anisometropia, both eyes have a cylindrical correction, but of different nature. One may be myopic and other is hyperopic. Then binocular vision. Basically, binocular vision is the simultaneous perception, use of two eyes simultaneously. In anisometropia, one eye receives clear image while the other eye has a blur image. The mind definitely refused the eye with blur image, and eyes cannot work as a team. When the teamwork is lost, we lost the binocular vision. And the grades of binocular vision are simultaneous perception, fusion, and stereopsis. Objectives of my study is effect of anisometropia on binocular functions and identify which type mostly affect the binocular vision. Methodology: it's a cross-sectional study in which performed at Mayo Hospital, eye department. Sample size is 35 patients and age range is from 8 to 35 years, and a significance level of -0.05 will be set, and p-value is less than 0.05. Inclusion criteria: all patients with anisometropia ranging from 1 diopter to 6 diopter, and both cycloplegic and non-cycloplegic patients included. And exclusion criteria: the anisometropic patients with strabismus are excluded, or anisometropia greater than 6 diopter. Then evaluate the status of stereopsis. Two tests are used: the stiffness stereo test and Lang1 and Lang2 is used for checking the stereopsis in patients, and to evaluate the fusion, Worth-Ford test and Bergoni glasses are used. These are the possible results which can be with Bergoni glasses and Worth-Ford test. Then informed consent form taken from the patients, and data analysis carried out using the SPSS 13 at that time. Come to the results. These are the results. Most of the patients in my study presented with anisometropia are myopic. Higher the degree of anisometropia, lower the level of stereopsis. This graph shows that myopic patients are more in the population, and mostly they have low levels of stereopsis. The conclusion is the study revealed the fact that binocularity is affected by anisometropia. Higher the degree of anisometropia, the lower level of binocular vision we will achieve. The message takeaway is that anisometropia should be treated as early as possible in children, because it will lead to loss of binocular vision. And acknowledgement. Thanks to Professor Moeen and Dr. Shabana, my teacher, Ms. Aisha Sarfraz, and thank you all for listening.
View of frequency of types of astigmatism and their relationship to asthenopia.
And I am working as a senior lecturer in the UMT University, Lahore. Today my topic is discrete view of frequency and types of astigmatism and their relationship to asthenopia. Basically, astigmatism is a common refractive error which can cause eye strain, fatigue and stress. If astigmatism is left uncorrected, it may cause persistent asthenopia and reduce VL efficiency. Asthenopia is a group of symptoms in which included eye strain, eye stress, headache, fatigue, and blurring and itching. Our objective is to determine the frequency of astigmatism and their types and correlate with the asthenopic symptoms. Our study design is a descriptive cross-sectional study conducted at School of Health Sciences, UMT Lahore. Study period is 6 months. Total participants hour is 186. Age we selected in our study were 18 to 35 years. Inclusion criteria: best corrected VL acuity less than 6/6, free from the ocular pathology. It's mean we selected only those patients, those have no ocular pathology, only they have refractive error, astigmatism and their types. Exclusion criteria: ocular surgery, corneal diseases, systemic conditions and medications affecting the vision. These are exclusive criteria. Study method: first of all, we measure history taking process. After the history taking, we take VL acuity assessment. After the VL acuity, we perform objective refraction. Then we perform subjective refraction. After the subjective refraction, we diagnose the type of astigmatism is oblique, against the rules astigmatism, with the rule astigmatism, and then we prescribe the best correction VL acuity. And then we perform a follow-up checkup. In our study, total male was 89 and total female was 97 and total patient was 186. These are the age ratio of our patients. Symptoms that were commonly comes to the patient were double vision and headache. And these two symptoms, after the correction of best VL acuity, these patients feel relief from the double vision and headache and eye strain. Results: in our study, compound myopic astigmatism was 45.7%, mixed was 20.4%, compound was 99.9%, simple was 8.6%, and simple hyperopic was 5.4%. Results: these were the types of astigmatism: with the rule, against the rule, and oblique. In our study, most patients were compound myopic astigmatism, which contribute 83.5%, symptomatic significantly associated with the asthenopia. Discussion. Compound myopic astigmatism was the most common type found in half of the population in our study. More than 80% of those with compound myopic astigmatism and also have the headache symptoms. Conclusion. If we detect and accurate classification and timely correction of astigmatism, they will reduce the symptoms of asthenopia. Recommendation is provide social awareness to people about the importance of wearing their spectacles so that they feel easy and comfort with the vision and also feel relief from the headache. Thank you.
Presenter is Mahanur Nawaz, and she will present on evaluation of commencement of color vision defects in the tuberculosis patients due to macular support due to intake of ethambutol with rifampicin.
I'm standing in front of you to represent the topic of evaluation of commencement of color vision defect in tuberculosis patient with the intake of ethambutol with rifampicin. Tuberculosis is a highly contagious disease caused by infection with the Mycobacterium tuberculosis, for which the first line treatment is ethambutol with the combo of rifampicin with the average dose of 27.5 mkd. Now, the main topic is that the toxicity caused by the ethambutol are of two types, axial toxicity and paroxysmal toxicity. But they cause the color vision defect and various central field or peripheral field defects. The main difference in both of them is that the axial cause the central scotoma defect and the paraxial cause peripheral field defects. But the main toxicity caused by ethambutol and its combo is red-green blindness. The objective of my article or my presentation is that to indicate the initiation of color vision defect in patients that taking ethambutol in the period of 2 to 6 months. The samples, this study is conducted at the tuberculosis department of Mayo Hospital with a sample size of 84 subjects and age group of 25 to 65 years. Exclusion criteria include the patient that are diabetic, hypertensive, and they have the congenital color vision defects. To evaluate the color vision defect, we have used the French-Munsell D15 Hue test and the PV16 test. SPS is used to evaluate the qualitative and quantitative variables of data. Talking about the results, rifampicin and ethambutol caused the 92.8% defects in the patient that take kits at the month of the 2 months, duration for the 2 months. While seeing this graph, you can see that the duration of the 2 months at the start or at the end of the 2 months, these patients have the most color vision defects, including the red-green blindness. While talking about the discussion, the main emphasizing point is that the study conducted by Asner N tells that the patient have 54.37 defect, but according to our study with a p-value of 0.45 is a strong statistical association that ethambutol with the rifampicin for 2 months caused 38.5% defects. While talking about the recommendation, according to the American Academy of the Ophthalmology, there should be a clinical test, D15 or PV16 should be available in the tuberculosis clinics so that the color vision defect of the patient should be assessed before taking the medicine or during the duration of the medicine. In the conclusion, it's a comprehensive study encompassing the most critical period for observing the condition was 2 months with a percentage of 46.2%. These are the acknowledgements. Thank you so much.
Our next speaker is Sidra Anwar, and her topic of discussion is comparative analysis of retinal nerve fiber layer thickness and optic nerve head parameters on OCT in migraneous and non-migraneous.
With the permission of chair and co-chair, my name is Sidra Anwar and I am working as an optometrist in College of Ophthalmology and Allied Vision Sciences. Today, I have to discuss the two papers. The first one is comparative analysis of retinal nerve fiber layer thickness and optic nerve head parameters on OCT in migraineurs and non-migraineurs. This is the abstract of my study. The objective was to investigate and compare the structural differences and changes in the retinal nerve fiber layer thickness and optic nerve head parameters in migraineurs and those without migraine. As we all know that migraine is a recurrent neurological disorder marked by severe headaches and symptoms such as nausea, photophobia and phonophobia. Phonophobia is the phobia due to the light with a strong genetic basis and higher prevalence in women. Beyond reducing quality of life, migraine can affect ocular structures such as cortical spreading depression, may trigger trigeminal-vascular activation leading to vascular spasm and retinal or optic nerve hypoperfusion. So these changes can cause ganglion cell loss and increase susceptibility to ocular complications, making variations in optic nerve head structure and retinal nerve fiber layer thickness potential migraine biomarkers. This study uses optical coherence tomography OCT to evaluate optic nerve head and retinal nerve fiber layer changes in migraine patients, aiming to identify retinal alterations that may support early detection and improve understanding of migraine pathophysiology. Methodology includes, this study was done in College of Ophthalmology and Allied Vision Sciences, and it was a comparative cross-sectional study. Sample size was 66, 33 migraineurs and 33 non-migraineurs. Subjects having any central nervous system disease other than migraine or any systemic disease like diabetes and hypertension were excluded. Once informed consent was obtained, patients who met the inclusion criteria was enrolled. All the demographic data and the history regarding migraine was recorded. The subjects were given a brief about OCT procedure. After their consent, the OCT was performed. We used OCT NIDEC RS330 in our research. All the findings were written on Proforma for research purpose. Results of this study involves the analysis of data from 66 patients for a number of ophthalmic parameters such as retinal nerve fiber layer, cup and disc area, optic nerve head parameters. In this study, 27.27% of participants were men and 72.73% were women. The participants' average age is 22.47 years. Retinal nerve fiber layer thickness in the superior quadrant of both eyes showed a significant thinning. Conclusion includes migraine patients show certain alterations of the retina and optic nerve head in comparison with a normal control group, especially regarding the retinal nerve fiber layer thickness and RD ratio. Members of the migraine group demonstrate significant retinal nerve fiber layer thinning in the superior quadrant of both eyes. Parameters like cup area, disc area, and CD ratios with no remarkable differences showed that these parameters might not be affected by migraine. In the study, retinal characteristics appear to be altered, but the reason of these changes still require extensive investigation. These were my references. Thank you so much. The next topic of our discussion is beyond correction, evidence-based approaches to myopia control. As we all know about myopia, the prevalence projections is nearly 50% of the world population projected to be myopic by 2050, with 10% developing high myopia. Why we are considering myopia? Because high myopia is directly linked to sight-threatening complications including retinal detachment, glaucoma, and myopic maculopathy. Regional impact. Early onset and rapid progression of myopia are particularly prevalent in East and Southeast Asia. Recently, we have conducted a systematic review in which we targeted the Punjab area for myopia, and the prevalence which came was almost 67% in myopia at the present age, and the age group was 4 to 16 years. Understanding myopia progression, axial length elongation as the core mechanism. As we all know that axial myopia results from the irreversible elongation of the eyeball, which progressively worsen vision over time. Faster axial length growth in children is strong predictor of higher risk of severe myopia. Early identification of at-risk children is critical for implementing timely and effective interventions. Why early identification is necessary? Because early the detection, early will be the control. If we don't control the myopia, then there will be severe retinal complications which lead to the longer disability life years. Behavioral and environmental interventions, prevention before onset, increased outdoor time. Studies show that spending 2 hours daily outdoors significantly reduces myopia onset risk in children. Many studies shows the link between the dopamine that comes from sunlight and the decrease in myopia. Reduce near work intensity. Focusing on reducing the intensity, not just duration of near work activities, help delay myopia development. In this part, we consider the 20-20-20 rule. What is 20-20-20 rule? After every 20 minutes, one have to see at 20 feet for 20 seconds. These are the short breaks. In addition to this, frequent breaks after 1 hour should be given if you have strenuous near work. Lifestyle changes. These interventions are safe and low cost but require sustained lifestyle adjustment and robust public health support. Optical interventions. Beyond glasses for vision correction, multifocus and defocus lenses. There are various myopic lenses in the market having DIMS and lenslet technology which we are using in our myopic patients. In addition to this, the cost-effective treatment bifocals are also used in public sector. Orthokeratology. In this, we used hard contact lenses overnight and the patient is comfortable in the morning. Evidence supports that 30 to 50% reduction in myopia progression rates with these modalities. Pharmacological approaches. In Mew Hospital, we use 0.05% atropine for slowing the progression of myopia. In addition to this, we use bifocals plus atropine. Emerging therapies, red light and combination protocols. Repeated low-level red light therapy. In this, the red light therapy works on the choroidal thickness, so the axial elongation becomes small. And combination therapy treatments, as I have already mentioned about the bifocals and the atropine treatment. Conclusion towards multifocal evidence-based future in myopia control, collaboration among clinicians, researchers and policymakers is vital to standardize care and improve outcome worldwide, reducing the future burden of vision loss. Thank you very much.
Will present on the study of functional visual ability of persons with visual impairment in indoor and outdoor activities after low vision rehabilitation.
Assalamu alaikum everyone. My name is Zainab Abdul Razak and I'll be presenting my project, Study of Functional Availability of Person with Visual Impairment in Indoor and Outdoor Activities After Low Vision Rehabilitation. Before we begin, I want you to reflect on one idea. Rehabilitation does not restore eyesight, it restores freedom. So, two people with same visual impairment may have different ability to live independently. So, this brings us to an important question. What matters more, clarity or functionality? First of all, we will understand what is functional vision and visual impairment. Functional vision means using whatever vision a person has in the most effective way to be used in daily activities. Whereas visual impairment means using irreversible loss of vision loss that cannot be corrected with any medication, surgery or glasses. So, This table classifies low VN on the basis of WHO. There are three categories depending upon the best corrected VL acuity from mild impairment to complete blindness. This table shows low VN rehabilitation. Low VN rehabilitation is aimed to strategize the person to live independently. It focuses on building skills and strategies that the person can live more independently in their real life. The aim of this study was to assess functional availability and to measure the impact of low VN rehabilitation on the person. This study was a cross-sectional study conducted at New Hospital, Lahore. It included 73 participants. Using a non-probability convenience sampling, the data was collected through demographics, clinical history, and VL testing. The analysis was done by SPSS 27, and the t-test significance was 0.05, under 0.05. Our results were quite interesting. There was a significant improvement in VL acuity rating, but there was no improvement in best corrected VL acuity. This means rehabilitation does not improve eyesight itself, but it actually improved the use of VN the person has left. This table, the data was collected through this performa. The patient have varying impact of functional VL ability after LVR. This table shows the best corrected VL acuity before and after rehabilitation and VL acuity before and after rehabilitation. There was a significant improvement in VL acuity rating, which was very significant, 0.0001. But there was no improvement in best corrected VL acuity. This table compares the pre and post rehabilitation BCVA and pre and post rehabilitation VAR. In conclusion, VL impairment greatly affects our daily life. We suffer from reading, writing, navigating, recognizing objects, but low VN rehabilitation can make our life easy by just making us independent by using the remaining VN we have. For future work, more advanced rehabilitation techniques can be used so that we can face people facing challenges more advancedly. Thank you. If you have any question, please don't hesitate to ask.
And her topic is impact of prolonged screen time on visual functioning and retinal health in young adults.
Assalamu alaikum and good morning everyone. My name is Sara Suram. I am from CMH Lahore Medical College. Today my topic of presentation is impact of prolonged screen time on visual functioning and retinal health in young adults. बेसिकली वी नो आफ्टर कोविड-19 हमारा स्क्रीन टाइम बहुत ज़्यादा इंक्रीज़ हो चुका है. सोशल मीडिया और हमारी जो है रिमोट वर्किंग या फिर हमारी ऑनलाइन लर्निंग जो है उसकी वजह से हमारा जो हर चीज़ है वो डिजिटल हो चुका है. हमारा स्क्रीन टाइम जो है वो मोस्टली बहुत ज़्यादा इंक्रीज़ हो गया एज़ कम्पेयर टू लास्ट डेकेड. हम अगर बात करें तो इसमें मोस्टली वो पॉपुलेशन आती है जो हमारी यंग एडल्ट्स हैं, जो हमारी एज ग्रुप फॉल कर रहा है 18 to 30, 35. तो बेसिकली इस स्टडी का मेन जो ऑब्जेक्टिव था वो आइडेंटिफाई करना कि आया कि जो हमारी स्क्रीन यूज़ है ये हमारी रेटिनल हेल्थ पे कोई इम्पेक्ट कर रहा है या नहीं. As we know, teenage and young adults are more sensitive to adverse impact of excess use of digital devices, particularly the smartphones more so compared to the previous generations. हमारी अगर हम previous generation की बात करें या last decade तक की बात करें तो तब तक हमारा जो है screen time बहुत कम था comparatively जो nowadays हमारा इस पे चल रहा है. बेसिकली ये हमारी स्टडी क्रॉस सेक्शनल डिस्क्रिप्टिव स्टडी थी. इसमें हमने 85 यंग एडल्ट्स लिए थे बिटवीन द एज ऑफ 18 to 30. उनका हमने डिटेल एग्जामिनेशन किया था जिसमें उनकी वीओ लिक्विडिटी वीएन असेसमेंट उनमें हमने वो पेशेंट रखे थे जो माइल्ड जिनका रिफ्रैक्टिव एरर था या जो सारे विदाउट एनी रिफ्रैक्टिव एरर थे. इसके लिए हमने मेटिकुलसली सेल्फ एडमिनिस्ट्रेटिव क्वेश्चनर यूज़ किया था टू कलेक्ट द डाटा जिसमें हमने पेशेंट का हेल्थ डाटा, ओकुलर हिस्ट्री, स्क्रीन टाइम्स, उसकी हैबिट्स, उसकी एस्थेनोपिक सिम्टम्स, रिसेंट रिफ्रैक्टिव स्टेटस एंड असेसमेंट ऑफ रेटिनल स्टेटस वाया OCT जो है वो डॉक्यूमेंट किया था। रिजल्ट्स हमारे जो थे, इसमें हम क्लियर राइजिंग ट्रेंड देख सकते हैं कि सिम्टम्स में हमारा जो है वो अगर हम अकॉर्डिंग टू आवर्स देखें, वो हमारा सिम्टम्स जो है वो इंक्रीज किए थे। सबसे ज़्यादा हमारे पास हेडेक की रिपोर्ट आई थी। अगर हम उसको 1 और 2 आवर्स में देखें तो वो हमारे पास 5.5% था, और अगर उसी चीज़ को हम 6.8 आवर्स में देखें, 6 to 8 आवर्स या मोर आवर में देखें तो वो 10.4 था। ओवरऑल टोटल ये हमारा 25.8% हमारे हेडेक की कंप्लेन की थी इंडिविजुअल ने। उसके बाद हमारे पास 18.7% जो है वो हमारे पास आई स्ट्रेन्स, उसके बाद हमारे पास आई फटीग, सिमिलरली उसके बाद हमारे पास मोस्टली पेशेंट ने कंप्लेन की थी डिफ़िकल्टी इन फोकसिंग। इसी ये सारी जितनी भी सिम्टम्स हैं, इनका मेन मकसद यही था देखने का कि हमारे पास अगर इंडिविजुअल जितना जितना स्क्रीन टाइम इंक्रीज कर रहा है उसके साथ आया, उसकी कौन सी जो सिम्टम्स हैं, कौन सी उसकी कंप्लेंट्स हैं वो इंक्रीज हो रही है, उसको हम उसी तरीके से फर्दर पेशेंट को गाइड करके या हमारे पास जो यंग अडल्ट है या जनरेशन है जो हमारे पास OPD में नॉर्मली आती है, इन कंप्लेंट्स के साथ उसको हम ट्रीट कर सकें। नेक्स्ट हमने जो पेशेंट की जितने भी हमारे पास पेशेंट आए थे उनकी OCT स्कैन किया था। OCT स्कैन करके हमने उनकी देखी थी, ये सब टोटल 9 फील्ड्स जो होते हैं हमारे पास मैक्यूला के, उन सब की हमने रीडिंग्स ली थी, उनका मीन लिया हुआ है। अगर हम पेशेंट देखें जो हमारे 1 to 2 आवर्स के दरमियान जिनका स्क्रीन टाइम था, उनकी हमने सारे क्वाड्रेंट्स में रीडिंग्स ली। देन हमने उसको कंपेयर किया डिफरेंट आवर्स के अकॉर्डिंग। हमने जो मोस्टली एक चीज़ नोट की कि कौन सा हमारे पास क्वाड्रेंट है वो ज़्यादा अफेक्ट हो रहा है। उसमें हमारे पास सुपीरियर क्वाड्रेंट था, आउटर क्वाड्रेंट, सुपीरियर आउटर क्वाड्रेंट, उसके बाद इंफीरियर आउटर क्वाड्रेंट, जिसमें हमारे पास वेरिएशन आई है पेशेंट की OCT में कंपैरेटिवली वो यूज़र जिनके 1 और 2 आवर्स था या फिर वो यूज़र जिनका 6 to 8 आवर था। उसके बाद जो हमारे रिजल्ट्स मोस्टली सिग्निफिकेंट थे, लेस अनटिल अनलेस अगर हम बात करें सेंट्रल फोवियल थिकनेस में, सेंट्रल फोवियल थिकनेस बहुत हाई की अगर राइट आई के में भी देखी गई है, उसमें भी वो जो है हमारे पास 0.025% थी, और अगर हम जो है वो लेफ्ट आई की देखें तो उसमें भी हमारे पास सिग्निफिकेंट रिजल्ट नहीं आया था। बाकी सारे फील्ड में सिग्निफिकेंट था। इट्स मीन कि हमारे जो सेंट्रल फोवियल थिकनेस थी वो अनअफेक्टेड रही थी, उसमें ज़्यादा चेंजेस नहीं आई। जो हमारे आउटर क्वाड्रेंट्स में जो हमारी थिकनेस थी वो ड्यू टू जो है स्क्रीन स्ट्रेन की वजह से उसमें चेंजेस आई थी। तो ये हमें एक चीज़ सजेस्ट करता है कि हमारे एक्सेसिव स्क्रीन ऑफ यूज़ जो है वो हमारी रिफ्रैक्टिव एरर की भी एक मेजर रीज़न बन सकती है। ये वही चीज़ें जो मैंने अभी रिजल्ट में डिस्कस किया उनको मैंने सेपरेटली एलैबोरेट किया था। कंक्लूजन हमारी इस स्टडी का यही था कि ओवर एक्सपोजर टू ब्लू लाइट बाय डिजिटल डिवाइसेस एडवर्सली इम्पैक्ट द ओकुलर हेल्थ। एस्थेनोपिक साइन सिम्टम्स हैं और प्रोग्रेशन ऑफ मायोपिया, डिग्री बायनोकुलर विजन डिसफंक्शन एंड अल्टरेशन ऑफ मैकुलर सबफील्ड्स आ रही हमें मिल रही हैं इसमें। इसके बाद these findings highlight the growing need of screen time, moderate protective digital eye strain awareness and routine retinal monitoring among individual with high digital devices. ये मेरा अब स्टडी का कंक्लूजन था, और मेरी स्टडी की लिमिटेशन ये थी कि हमने ये स्टडी 1 टाइम में ली है। हम फर्दर स्टडीज़ के लिए कोहार्ट स्टडी कर सकते हैं जिसमें हमें एक एक्यूरेट हमें जो है हमारे पास फाइंडिंग आ जाएगी कि आया कौन सा जो है हमारे पास, अगर हम एक पेशेंट ले रहे हैं और वो स्क्रीन यूज़ उसकी ज़्यादा है, उसका ग्रेजुअली क्या अफेक्ट आएगा। हमारे सारे इंडिविजुअल का डिफरेंटली वो था, हर पेशेंट जो है उसका डिफरेंट स्क्रीन टाइम था। एक ही पेशेंट पे हमने सारी स्क्रीन टाइम्स इंक्रीज करके नहीं किया, तो इस वजह से ये हमारी स्टडी का ड्रॉबैक था। थैंक यू सो मच। एनी क्वेश्चन?
Now, Miss Nayab Mahmood will present on macular support with saffron, and her second topic will be evaluation of different types of strabismus among children.
Understanding the macula. The macula is the small central part of retina responsible for sharp, detailed central vision. It allows us to read, drive, and recognize faces. Age-related macular degeneration is leading cause of vision loss, characterized by oxidative stress and damage to photoreceptor cells. Saffron. As you know about saffron, it's an antioxidant. Saffron is just an expensive spice. It contains bioactive carotenoids, coricin, and quercetin. These compounds possess unique antioxidant properties that specially targeted ocular tissues. It allows free radial cellular defense. It upregulates the body antigenous antioxidant enzyme, enhancing the natural defense system of eye cells. Blood flow improves oxygen diffusivity and retinal blood flow, support overall metabolic health. Saffron act as neuroprotectant for the delicate photoreceptor cells in the retina. Research indicates it helps prevent light-induced damage and cell death, apoptosis. This prevention of photoreceptors morphology is crucial for maintaining vision in the early stages of degeneration. Clinical study results that 20 mg of saffron daily showed improvement. Measuring functions are focal electroretinogram and visual acuity. It shows retinal improvement in the patients. Visual acuity patients experience an improvement in visual acuity, typically gaining around 2 lines on the Snellen chart. 20 milligram of high quality saffron stomach extract improves vision. Safety and compatibility. Safety, as I said before, 20 to 30 milligram per day of saffron improves in vision, and it has a result in macular degeneration. Multivitamin, as we use, most of the ophthalmologists use as Shortina saffron. Shortina is a tablet offer daily macular support with many active ingredients to prevent a range of retinal disease like AMD and diabetic retinopathy. A powerful antioxidant that improves result with the Snellen eye chart exam. Shortina offer daily macular support with five active ingredients: lutein, merzoxanthin, transxanthin, alpha-carotene, saffron extract. These ingredients are bright orange and red antioxidant in combination with vitamin A. It absorbs dangerous blue light, protect the retina, and support sharp vision. Macular support protect from retinal degeneration, strengthen capillary network and visual response, improve macular thickness, beneficial in improving and protecting photoreceptor damage. Summary of benefits. Saffron offers a promising natural adjunct therapy for early AMD. Though potent antioxidant activity and neuroprotection, it supports retinal function and may help preserve central vision. I encourage all attendees, speakers, and participants alike to go through the program to familiarize themselves with the session of interest. Thank you. Strabismus is the misalignment of the eyes where they do not point at the same object simultaneously. It affects approximately 2 to 4% of children. Early evaluation is critical because untreated strabismus can lead to amblyopia, lazy eye, permanent vision loss, and loss of binocular depth perception. Patient history taking, onset and duration, and characteristics. Onset and duration. When was the deviation first noticed? Infantile strabismus typically appears before 6 months. Acquired cases appears later. Characteristics. Is the deviation constant or intermittent? Does it alternate between eyes or fixate with one? Is there a family history of squint or glasses? Visual acuity assessment. Accurate visual acuity testing helps detect amblyopia. The method used depends strictly on the child eye and cooperation. Infants fix and follow teller acuity card, preferential looking. Toddlers में Leah symbol or HOTV matching test, school age Snellen acuity chart. Observation and inspection. Head posture, external exam, motility. Head posture check for abnormal head position. Face turn or head tilt may indicate an attempt to fuse vision or compensate for a muscle palsy. External exam. Evaluate for lid position, tosses, facial asymmetry, and epicanthal fold, which can cause pseudostrabismus. Motility. Observe general eye movement in all 9 cardinal positions of gaze to identify obvious limitation. Corneal light reflex test, Hirschberg test, Krimsky test. Hirschberg test. Observe the reflection of a light on the cornea. Central symmetry is normal. 1 mm decentration equals 15 prism diopter of deviation. Krimsky test. Prism are placed in front of the fixating eye until the corneal reflection are perfectly centered in both pupil. The cover test, the gold standards for diagnosis. Cover uncover test, alternate cover test. Cover uncover test distinguishes between tropia manifest, squint, and phoria latent. If the uncovered eye moves to take up fixation, atropia is present. Alternate cover test breaks fusion to measure the total deviation, tropia plus phoria. Evaluating esotropia. Esotropia is the inward turning of one or both eyes. It is infantile esotropia, accommodative esotropia. Large angle deviation appears before 6 months, often requires surgical correction. Accommodative esotropia caused by high uncorrected hyperopia, farsightedness, often fully corrected with glasses. Evaluating exotropia. It is intermittent exotropia and constant exotropia. Most common type is intermittent exotropia. The eye drifts out occasionally, especially when tired, sick, or daydreaming. One eye may close in bright sunlight. Constant exotropia, less common and may indicate neurological issues or poor vision in deviating eye. Refraction and management. Cycloplegic refraction management. Cycloplegic refraction essential to uncover the full amount of hyperopia. Eye drops relax the ciliary muscle to prevent accommodation. Management may include glasses for refractive errors, occlusion therapy, that is patching for amblyopia, and surgery for muscle alignment. Thank you everyone.
यूज किया था ड्रॉप्स आपका उसके साथ
That's the tablet.
tablets. So do you have any financial interest or disclosure to make?
We are using in our clinic for AMD.
चलना ठीक है.
आपको इसका देना पड़ता है कि मेरा इसमें कोई इंटरेस्ट नहीं फाइनेंशियल.
नहीं, if you are not receiving any financial assistance for those promoting those jobs, you have to make a disclosure for those.
We are just using in our for patients, and I am going to as an experiment, and I saw people improve with it.
Okay.
That's why I show that.
Thank you.
इसमें आपने ERG कराई थी?
Yeah, patients की
कहाँ से कराई थी?
मतलब कि
आपने मेंशन किया ना इसमें ERG का.
सर मैंने खुद से नहीं करवाई लेकिन पेशेंट्स में
नहीं. So which center आपका कौन सा सेंटर था जिसमें आपने ERG स्टडीज करवाई थी? क्योंकि आपने बताया ना it was FERG studies.
It is present in Mayo.
No, it's not.
Where it is?
So, I don't know. You did the research.
I actually made presentation, and most of the time internet show that people with AMD having ERGs. So.
Okay. So आपने कैसे evaluate किया था that your saffron is effective in reducing AMD? How did you compare the results?
By using the fixation stations, using that saffron tablet that is certain.
What was the variable did you utilize? कौन से टेस्ट यूज किए थे जिससे आपने कंपेयर किया कि बिफोर यूजिंग श्योर रेटिना?
I am doing OCTs.
आपने OCT का तो जिक्र नहीं किया. So but you did mention FERG, but you didn't do it.
But I am doing OCT on that patient.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for your patient listening.